Worry about your own freaking show, bro. You'll be a lot better off. Russo'sBrand.com, where the pros are the pros.
I wanted to play this clip of Triple H that went viral this week. You guys may have seen it already because it was all over the wrestling internet, but he's talking about, well, shows like ours.
It always makes me laugh in this current day and age that old timers will do podcasts where they're giving everything away from their generation of the business and saying how terrible it is that these kids don't kayfabe today. So let me get this straight. You're on a podcast telling everybody all the non-kayfabe stuff and then complaining that there's no kayfabe today. Genius.
He's right. I mean, it is kind of a catch-22. You were just talking about the fact that, I did the Netflix series, and advice I give young talent is just keep two social media platforms. One, so that you are the character that you say you are in the ring, and then one that's for just your friends and family. That's you. That's, be your public persona. That's all I recommend, because that's ultimately what you're really selling. You're selling who you are. And that's really primarily number one. That's the one thing that the audience wants to buy, is who you are. So don't violate that. That's it. That's not that hard to me. I mean, that's, and again, like we've talked about, when it comes to, the scrums and things like that, I think it only appeals to, and it only reaches a very niche audience. I don't see it going beyond that. I don't see it going into the average person, or, interrupting their viewing.
Yeah, well, hold on. Again, here's Jeff, the legend deal's coming into play. Let me spell this out here. I'm not going to sit here and kiss Triple H's ass, okay?
I'm not either.
Number one freaking Triple H. Bro, why don't you try doing what I did? Okay, bro? When I was writing television, believe it or not, bro, there was internet, and they were starting, and there was Prodigy, and there was AOL. No, it was not as sophisticated as it is now, but it existed. Guess what, Triple H? Rather than me wasting my time listening to the opinions of others and what are they going to say about me and what are they going to say about the show, I paid no attention, zero attention. You know what I did, bro? I concentrated on the show, and I highly recommend you spend more time concentrating on the show than worrying about what us old timers are saying out here, because quite frankly, bro, your show sucks. Your show absolutely sucks. So rather than worry about what us old timers are saying, worry about your own freaking show, bro. You'll be a lot better off. Second of all, he's talking out of his ass, Al. He's talking out of his ass, because here's what we're talking about.
Right.
Casual wrestling fans are not watching shows like this, Trips. They're not watching wrestling shows like this on the freaking internet. But what are they doing, bro? They're going to the accounts of their favorite wrestlers, and they're seeing a totally different character. How can you freaking compare the two, bro? Seriously, if I'm 10-year-old Johnny, and I've got a favorite wrestler, and I'm following them on social media, and all of a sudden Rhea Ripley has no makeup on and is opening up a present with all bows and packages and going, ooh, hee. You think that guy is watching this? You think that kid's watching this show? Don't freaking talk out your freaking ass. It's two completely different things. I don't need a Legends deal like Al. You understand me? I don't need it, bro. I don't need it. Worry about your show sucks, bro. Everybody and their mother has said this build to WrestleMania has been the worst build in 40 years, and you're going to worry about what us old-timers are saying out here? Seriously? All right, now.
I was thinking about this because I remember having a conversation. I don't know if it was one of our listeners years ago about this. Because they were saying we were kind of like hypocrites one time when we were talking about how they're giving everything away to the audience on Twitter. Right. Well, I think the difference, at least for me, is the way I look at this. If you guys come on here and you tell the story that went into like the Kennel from Hell match and getting the dogs and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
You're not trying to sell people to buy a ticket to see that now. You're not trying to get them to believe in that. Today on TV, you want the audience to believe in that and to buy tickets and suspend their disbelief. So I think there's a difference in that too, because you're trying to get us to buy what you're selling now. And when you guys tell stories like that, you're not trying to sell tickets to see a match or anything.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that is the thing. And I think there's got to be a balance. There's a way to do it because, the audience is more sophisticated these days, and they're not as simplistic. That's like when I have conversations with talent in OVW, and then they're like, well, I can't do this because I'm a heel. And I'm like, well, wasn't it? And you can, I'm sure if anyone can, you can attest to this. Reggie Jackson was a heel, was he not, Vince?
Absolutely.
A real person. He's a heel. I mean, I remember at a Comic-Con, talking to him. He was a great guy to me. And then he started talking to Flair and just poking the bear, just trying to stir Flair up, over real athletics and whether or not Flair was a real athlete, just to get him to sell, and that there was that competition between him. And, I've heard like Michael Jordan can be more than a heel. He can be a just complete asshole. But then we applaud. We at one point we say it's okay. You can, you're being off base. Old timers are being off base about kayfabe and all of that. But then we applaud when Matt Hardy never broke character. Oh, he was a genius. He was so brilliant. He stayed in character. We applaud MJF in being in character all the time in public. He never breaks kayfabe. We can't have it both ways. I mean, there's got to be some kind of a balance where, and I think a good example of that is, or at least used to be, I don't know so much anymore, but I know that MJF was one of those guys that could kind of walk that line and remain the person that he sold to the public, without smartening anybody up that he wasn't really that guy, and yet still be a genuine person. And I think that's where we've got to go with this. We've got to try and find a way. And look, the same as far as the scrums and things, these podcasts, are going to appeal to a certain audience that's going to listen to the podcast. It's not going to appeal to the, Mr. and Mrs. Walmart who are never
Right.
going to listen.
Of course not.
It's never going to broach that fourth wall for them. Those things are just, they're there for a particular consumer, and they're not there for the general public.
Listen,
but regardless of what people want to say or believe, you're still trying to sell to the majority, which is the general audience, not just the wrestling audience, because there are more of the general audience who have more disposable income, and you're wanting to appeal as much as you can to them. And in order to appeal to them, you've got to never violate what it was you sold them, which was who the talent was.
Listen, I'm going to share a quote with you, Al, of the great Ralph Cramden to Ed Norton. Okay. Ralph Cramden said to Ed Norton, "I've seen some hypocrites in my day, but you are the hippiest critter I ever saw." All right, let's leave it at that, Al.